everybody, today we're doing the February wrap-up. Hey everybody, my name is Sophie, the Bookish Floor. Welcome back to my channel. So finally I'm doing the February wrap-up. I was gonna say sorry about that delay, but really from a chronically ill girly, I'm not sorry. Between migraines and like muscle spasm, which is something new I guess that I had to rest for about a week and do nothing, and I had to take my time off so that I can come back fully recharged and do my wrap up. So for all of you girlies out there, this is a sign to take the time off whenever you need it, and then there's always people waiting for you when you come back. So today I'm gonna talk to you guys about all the books that I read in February and what I thought about them and what I liked about them and the rating that I give them. So let's go ahead and get started with the theme of the month. So if you guys don't know, last month was Black History Month. Now I also have other themes like one book in Spanish, a nonfiction, things like that. So those are gonna be also in this list. And this time I try to pick all of those from African American authors, except for the one in Spanish. I did end up selecting something different for that one. But let's go ahead and get started with the books that I read. Okay, so the first book that I read in February was Fable of the Sower. I'm pretty sure you know what that is, but if not, this is a book by Octavia E. Butler. This is book one in what was supposed to be a trilogy. It ended up being a duology. Book 3 was never finished, and Octavia E. Butler passed away. So we don't have book 3 out there in the universe. And I can tell you right now, I did read book 1 and book 2, Parable of the Sower and Parable of the Talents, and definitely felt like there was something missing. But let's go ahead and talk about book number 1. So book number 1 is about this girl who lives in 2025, and it's a dystopian United States where a lot of people talk about there's fires and there's this government that it's kind of using religion as an excuse to do a lot of things, to be very racist and sexist and different things like that. And a lot of people were saying there were a lot of parallels, and yes, definitely. But when it came to the fires, for example, a lot of people started talking about it because of the LA fires, and this takes place in like California. However, the fires are started, they aren't like from global warming. They are started by people who are using illegal substances, because that is the way they're also being the country kind of is being run down by a lot of illegal substances on the streets, homelessness. Like there are a lot of parallels, and there's a lot of people talking about this book as if Octavia E. Butler saw the future, because once like neighborhoods are kind of like enclosed and people kind of take care of their people, but sometimes neighborhood get like ravaged by other people that come and attack and do horrible things. Like there's so many trigger warnings. Please check before you read this book, because there's so many, like everything you can think of is there. And people have to kind of be refugees, basically move from one place to another and trying to survive. And that's what happens to our main character. She loses her family and it's just her and a neighbor, and they have to try and survive. And this is a teenage girl, and she's also gifted with she can kind of see not the future or anything, but she kind of has a connection to the universe that allows her to believe in something bigger, something greater. So yes, definitely a lot of parallels. Definitely people can take this and think, oh my god, she could see the future. But really, if you pay close attention to what's been going on around the world, this is just something that's been going on in a lot of other countries. and just set it up in the United States. A lot of people have their countries being ravaged by homelessness, poverty, illegal substances on the street, crime, violence, and they have to move either within the country or to other countries to seek refuge. Like, this is nothing new. I think Octavia E. Butler didn't predict a United States. She simply saw the state of the world and she put it in a United States setting. I think what people should be asking themselves is, why are other societies that are supposed to be better off turning into those societies? What are the mistakes that they are making or we are making to turn into that? Or is it just something that every country is supposed to go through as like a cycle? I don't know, like that things that literature can provoke, questions that it can provoke. And yeah, definitely. And also I think all that the main character had spiritual connection can also be exactly that, like a connection to the earth, a connection to something else. It could be her high capacities. Maybe she is more intuitive. Maybe she could see people more clearly because of her high capacities. So there's a lot of things that can explain her character and the setting of the story that are based in reality. This is not a magical girl or a girl who sees something in a dystopian world. Like, that is the setting of the story, obviously, because it is a dystopian, it is fiction, but you can set it up in reality very, very fast. And I think that that's what Octavia E. Butler does with her work. Same thing with Kindred, which I read last year. She can take this fantastical view, this sci-fi. She tells these really realistic stories from what she sees. She takes from history, puts it in a sci-fi setting, but really she's telling you what it's already there. She's not telling you about the future. She's actually telling you about the past and what is going on right now. So I think it's very interesting. Parable of the Talents is the second book, which I also read. And by the way, I gave Parable of the Sower 4 stars. Parable of the Talents is the second book in which the main character is still around. She finds safe haven. It's a little bit of a spoiler for book number 1. She finds safe haven. So she creates her own community, her own followers. They create a new community where they can live off the land. She kind of creates, a lot of people call it like a new religion. I don't think it's necessarily a new religion. She just creates a following. She believes in something bigger. And they work off the land and they work all together. And obviously the people who are in charge of the government don't want that. They want everybody to be the same way, to be of the same religion. And they have a lot of very strict rules. And they come in, some people, and again, ravage the community, separates them, takes her child, very Handmaid's Tale, very like that. Like, if you have even seen season 1 or read the book, it feels a little bit familiar to that, where they get separated. She gets enslaved because there's sort of like a new way of enslaving people, but it's still slaves, obviously. And they do it all in the name of their religion, like the Christianity, and then they are treated horribly. And they, again, a lot of trigger warnings here. Horrible things happen, abuse and all that. And how she escapes, how she's looking for her child. And also it turns out that okay, so this is spoiler, so I'm just gonna put it right here. So it turns out that her brother, she thought that she lost her whole family in book 1. Her brother is still alive. He was one of the people who got enslaved. He was also able to break free some way. Because her father was like a pastor, a minister. He also went into the church, and he is on the side of the church trying to be a good member of society in the church. So there is this conflict of there are good people in the church, there are bad people in the church. Just like there's good people on her community and there could be bad people on her community. Like, again, like regular normal society, making someone from a group or religion or a certain country or whatever doesn't make you good or bad as a group. There's good and bad everywhere. It doesn't matter where they come from. They can be good or bad anywhere. And the whole point of the second book is trying to figure that out, the relationship between siblings. And also there's a secret there that I don't want to spoil it, but definitely that secret and that other person that is involved in that secret had to play a bigger role on book 3, and you can see that because of how the story is being told. So the whole time during book 2, you feel like a shoe is about to drop, and the book ends and it feels incomplete. It feels like it needs like that third part to kind of round it up. So I did give Parable of the Talents 3 stars because I feel like it went a little bit off a tangent. I feel like I always think about this quote from Batman, and I'm sorry about that, but it says either you die a hero or you live long enough to become the villain. And I feel like book 2 had a little bit of that, like because that's real life also, when you are so committed to what you think it's right that you can be blindsided. And both of them, both of these characters are so committed to what they think it's right that they are, I feel like both of them are doing things that are very blindsided. And honestly, whenever people talk about motherhood, or they write about motherhood and I read it in books, there's a particular thing that rubs me the wrong way when people just sort of forget about their children for the greater good or whatever it is, or oh yes, this happens, but I'm gonna do this instead, and the children kind of take a second place. Like, it drives me nuts. Because I know that sometimes it's for the greater good, but is it so anyways, so I did like it. I definitely, Parable of the Sower is definitely the better of the two, and it sets up a lot of questions that you can answer and you can ponder on. And again, especially that I want people, if anybody takes anything from this review, is that a lot of people talk about it like it's a dystopian, like future thing that might not happen, or because it is 2025, the year that it happened in the book, a lot of people are like, oh my god, Octavia Butler predicted the future like magic. And it's like, no, like, open your eyes, look at the news, read what goes on in the world, and you can see that this is something that's been going on in a lot of places for the longest time throughout the history of the world. This is nothing new. She just put it in a setting of America in 2025, but really it happens all the time everywhere. And maybe be more aware of those places that have that thing going on. This is not imagining, this is not a make-believe world for a lot of people. This is the reality for a lot of people. So maybe if it would get more people interested in learning more about the world in that way, I think that's the most important thing about this book. And I think that's the intent of the book, not just, oh, parallels to 2025 in America, but it's not happening, okay, so now it's just fantasy or it's just sci-fi. Like, no, look around you. So I think that's important to do. But anyways, that was Parable of the Sower and Parable of the Talents. Okay, after that, I read a book called How Not to Drown in a Glass of Water, and I hated this book. I hated it. I gave it 2 stars. Let me just start right there. So this is the book. This is a story of a girl, well, a woman, middle age, who loses her job in a factory, and she is going to like a job agency to get an interview to possibly find a new job. And the story is told within with interviews from the person who is kind of making her profile to see where she would fit in, and she asks her questions, and she answers, but things like education, yes, I'm willing to have education, or yes, I like education. So she answers like a child in a lot of things, but she's like a grown woman, and she's telling her life story, and we know that it's a traumatic life story. She is from Latin America. She was in an abusive marriage. She immigrates into the United States. She takes her son. She works day in and day out, typical story that we have heard of her trying to survive. Her sister follows suit later on, but there's a lot of things that rub me the wrong way. There's a lot of generational trauma there is talked about. Like, she says that when she was afraid that her husband was gonna like harm her, she escaped to her mom's house, and her mom was like, well, what did you do? Go back to your husband. And she didn't let her in. So that's obviously, that is trauma. But when she's older and she has a son who is gay, she's incredibly homophobic. She's homophobic towards the neighbor's daughter, who is also gay. She says comments that are horrible, and she isn't breaking cycles, she's just repeating cycles. She's manipulative with her sister that is trying to be like, implement like kind parenting. She's trying to break cycles, she's trying to be a better parent, and she just brushes it off. She thinks that she's like too delicate, and her son is like too cuddled and things like that. So instead of making her like a character who went through things that, and she's supposed to grow, and even if she doesn't grow, that's fine. Like, she can stay the same way, and we can see her as someone who doesn't learn anything. But at the end, and I'm just gonna tell you because I don't want you to like, if you want to read this book, fine, but it's not great. At the end, she gets away with everything because she's, and people actually put this in reviews, like, she's so charming, no, she's not charming. Making everything a joke, making violence, like how you are manipulating people, how you are mistreating your family members, making you another abuser, and manipulating situations, and making that into a joke doesn't make you charming. And that came across as a character, so I hated her. Like, I read the whole thing simply because I was hoping that at the end something would happen that made her likable, something would change, something would like click in her. No, nothing clicks. When people are like, no, okay, let's have a relationship, she's always like, see, they want a relationship with me, I must not be that bad. Like, she knows how to manipulate every situation, and that's how the book ends. And it's like, this is, I don't want to hear about it. It was like a horrible situation. And again, this is something else, like when it comes to parenthood and motherhood, I cannot deal with that. If you're gonna tell me a story about a person who is not a cycle breaker, who is gonna become also a manipulative abuser, whether it's verbally, mentally, whatever it is, don't make it a happy ending for them. Don't make them the winner. Like, why would I want to read about that? Like, no. So, and the book is called How Not to Drown in a Glass of Water, because there's a saying in Spanish, como no ahogarte en un vaso de agua. There is, te estás ahogando en un vaso de agua, you're drowning in a glass of water. That is usually said to people that are making small things like a big deal. Like, oh, why you make something so small such a big deal? Why are you drowning in a glass of water? Like, why are you drowning in such a small place? But her things weren't like a glass of water. She was going, and her family, and everything was a big deal, and she's treating it like, no, like, all of you people are like exaggerating, and I'm okay, and I'm good, and this is how it's meant to be. So no, I didn't like it. Gave it 2 stars. Such a disappointing book, and especially because I've heard people recommended that I liked. So I don't know. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it's culturally that it's not translating correctly, because as someone from Mexico, who knows the dynamic of Latin American communities and things like that, and how a lot of people are breaking cycles right now, like that's not okay. Like that's not okay. So, anyways, that was How Not to Drown in a Glass of Water. I give it 2 stars. Okay, the next book that I read, I needed something like light and fluffy to make me happy. And I read I Hope This Doesn't Find You. I saw, I think Carrie Can Read recommend this one. And this is just a super cute YA about two enemies, two lovers, two math geniuses in high school, kind of fighting for their first place in school. She needs a scholarship in order to go to college. She needs to be like straight A student, be the best at everything. He has it a little bit better. He doesn't necessarily need the scholarship, but there's a lot of pressure on him from his family to be perfect. So there's two different dynamics going on, and how they those two people interact, how they become friends, how they can relate to that. And I really liked it. It was very slow burn, like you don't get almost anything until the end, and it's really sweet. So if you're looking for, and obviously this is YA, so it's very YA, but it's fun. It's fun. It's cute. It's calm. It was like a super good palate cleanser, something that I needed. Like I said, I'm not really into rom-coms or contemporary romance, but this one, because I think it's YA, I really liked it. Like it felt and it also felt realistic to like the kids, like kids that I even know. It doesn't feel like, sometimes YA can be like super exaggerated. Like this one felt like really real, really grounded in reality. So I thought it was really cute. So that's I Hope This Doesn't Find You, and I gave it 4 stars. Okay, the next book that I read is my book in Spanish, and this is from Nicolas Guevara. He's from Colombia. He's a young writer from Colombia, and this is Piel de Lobos y Brujas, and this is a fantasy retelling with LGBTQ plus representation of Little Red Riding Hood. And this is the story of Arthur and Elliot and Arthur's sister, who I always forget her name, sorry. And they're like 3 friends, 3 long life friends, and they are training to be the hunters. Like some of them are hunters and some of them are something else, but Elliot is definitely one of the like werewolf hunters, or like wolf hunters. And they have like this statue of Red Riding Hood, who was like the first like wolf hunter, and the hunters are there to protect the village from the wolves and all that. But when he was little, the village was attacked by wolves, and he was faced with a wolf. Like he heard someone calling him, and he went into the woods, and he was faced with the wolves. But when they saw him, they didn't attack him. They kind of even protected him. So he keeps getting these reoccurring dreams of wolves and stuff like that. But nobody in the village dreams. Like if you're dreaming, there's something special, something's up with you. And yeah, it is like an origin story. I come to find who Elliot is, and we kind of see what's going on between him and Arthur, how their friendship, because they're really best friends, is gonna blossom maybe into something more. And like Arthur's sister is just always with the banter, and she's so cute too. So I think it's like super fun fantasy book, retelling in Spanish, and I think there's also an English translation, but I'm not sure. But it's a great fantasy for anybody who wants to read it. There's a great audiobook also for it, and I think it's really great. It's really nice. I really like the writing. It's not over stylized like a lot of Latin American literature. It's great. I really like the writing. I think it was perfect for for the genre and for perfect for the theme. It does feel a little YA when it comes to the romance a little bit, but that's okay. It's not like the main part. I wouldn't call this a romantasy. This is definitely a fantasy, and it has some little bit of romance elements because, well, it's right there, but it's definitely a fantasy, like an adventure fantasy. And I believe it's gonna be like a series. So yeah, definitely check that out. That is Piel de Lobos y Brujas, and I gave that one 4 stars. Okay, after that, I did a challenge where I tried to read a book a day for a whole week, and the book that I started with was Other Birds. Other Birds is a book about a girl who finds out that her mother has passed, and she goes to her apartment building, and she left her the apartment, so she goes there, and someone else from the apartment building has passed, and she helps also clean up that other apartment, and she makes sure to contact the son, who is Oliver, to see if he wants any of the belongings. He doesn't. And then it's the story of the son, is the story of this girl, I think her name is Liz, is the story of like the landlord of the apartment building, is the story of the people who used to live there in the building who have passed. They are kind of refers to as ghosts. There's also a relationship between two other members or two other people who live in the building who are also main characters. As you can see from what I'm describing, there are a lot of characters, there are a lot of stories, and this was a little convoluted. It was a little hard to follow. I honestly couldn't tell you a lot about, I can tell you like the gist of it, but how they kind of meet, how they kind of hear about each other's stories. There's also a little bit of magical realism, but not really. Like it's mentioned and something supernatural kind of happens, but that's about it. This is from the same writer of Garden Spells, and Garden Spells I think was really great. There was like Garden Spells is kind of like practical magic. It's basically the same thing. So you have a lot of characters, but you have the main ones, the two sisters, right? In this case, you have kind of like the main two, which is Liz and Oliver. But really, there's so many, and we're going to the history of all those other ones, including the ghosts, like the ladies who have passed. That you can follow up with any of them. I think there were too many stories going on, and yeah, it felt like 80% of the book was a lot of fluff and a lot of different stories kind of intertwining and making us all like be all muddled in our heads. And then the last like 20% is like the whole chunk of the story, interesting things happen, but you have to get until that last 20%, and I don't think it's really worth it. Honestly, I gave it 3 stars, and I think I kept saying I don't know if it's me, because I never really got into it. There were too many. The more I think about it, I just think there were too many characters, too many side stories, and you get lost really easily. And yeah, I think it was hard to follow. I think this could have been like 2 books. It could have been a series with every book being about one member of the apartment complex, and that would have been cool. But yeah, no, I think this is too much. So give it a chance if you want. I gave it 3 stars because again, I didn't think it was horrible. I didn't hate at anyone. It's just that there were too many of them, and I couldn't get into like any of their stories. I couldn't really care about any of the characters that much. I could care about one character at the very end, and it was such small detail that I mean, I just want to hear his story at the end. But anyways, yeah, that was Other Birds. Okay, the next book the book that I read before that was a nonfiction called Black Joy, Stories of Resistance, Resilience, and Restoration. And this is from Tracy Michelle Lewis Gidgets. And these are several essays about difficult times and how to find joy in difficult times. But she goes through a lot of things, a lot of reflection, a lot of things that happened in 2020, a lot of things that have happened throughout history in the Black community, and how she and her family and those around her have resisted. She says things that like food and gatherings and celebrations are a sign of resistance, are a way of resistance, of resilience, of restoring. And I think it's very interesting. I gave it 5 stars. I think that because this is a nonfiction and this is her own personal story, it is difficult to rate it anything else, because obviously I don't know. When I listen to these types of books, I am there to listen and learn, and that's it. I'm not there to judge or anything like that. I'm really trying to just listen, learn, and take in their experiences to educate myself. Yeah, I really like that one. I would recommend it for any month, not just Black History Month. So that is Black Joy. Okay, the next book that I read for my weekly blog was Keeper of Enchanted Rooms, and I really like this book. This was the fantasy that I was hoping Other Birds would be. It is kind of similar. It's about a guy who inherits a house. He's a writer. He kind of can live wherever because he writes and he just sends things to his publisher. So he's like, perfect. I got a house from a grandma that I've never met. And he is told that the house hasn't been lived in for like a century, so it's probably not in good condition. So he's like, okay, maybe I'll just sell the land, whatever. He goes there. It's in an island and it's in perfect condition. So he's like, great. There's like rumors that the house might be haunted, and he's like, whatever, I'm sure there's like housekeeping here and that's why there's like noise or whatever. Cuts to someone in the Department of Magical Houses being called to go ahead and go to this house because the new owner is having trouble with it. So this girl is assigned to that house. She goes in there and the house doesn't want the guy to live in the house, but he's not letting him like leave the house. So he's like, please get me out of here, I don't know what to do. And she's like, oh, you have a magical house, you just have to know how to take care of it. And he's like, what is this? So this basically, she is teaching him how to take care of the house. The house needs proper care, like a cook, someone who cleans, like people who take care of the grounds. Like the house just wants to be taken care of, and he wants someone to take care of the house, obviously, and they can all live in harmony. So she helps him like set all that up and things like that. But obviously it's not like just that. There's a backstory to both of them. They have like he has like a backstory in his love life. She has a backstory with like someone not great. And how those are gonna intertwine at some point, and how is the relationship gonna, is it gonna grow or not, from just someone helping him set up the house to maybe friends to maybe more. So I thought it was magical from the beginning to end. I really did like the whole magical thing. I would like to continue the series, just probably not right now because I have other things on my TBR, but I thought it was cute. I thought it was, when they say cozy fantasy and things like that, this is definitely one of those books. Okay, and the last book that I read for February was another book in Spanish, and this was The Old Man Who Read Love Stories. I think I got this recommendation from Emily Fox. It is a super short story, or super short book from Luis Sepúlveda. He is also a Latin American author. He is an author from Chile. He died in 2020. Yeah, a lot of his book has been translated to over 50 languages, so he's a very well-known author. And I was curious to hear about this or listen to this book because, like I said, Emily Fox recommended it. I've never heard of it before. And I have been trying to read more books from Latin American authors. I liked it. I still felt like some I called it overstylized because I don't know what else to call it. But that's gonna be like my term. So whenever you hear me say that, it means that it's sometimes Latin American literature can be a little bit flowery, a little bit they use a lot of similes, a lot of metaphors, a lot of things like that. And this one I liked. I don't think it used too many. That beginning at the book is definitely one one big one, but other than that, it doesn't use too many. I did get a little bit lost in the story of who we were following. However, it closed really really well. I think that was my that I don't think that was my fault, like when I wasn't sure who we were following. But I really like the story. I like where it went. This is a story of a man who reads love stories, but really, this is a book about colonialism. This is a book about nature. This is a book about respecting nature, respecting indigenous communities. This is a book about respecting your surroundings and where you live. And this is a book about so much more than a guy who reads love stories. It's about the people who live in this village, about who gets to visit the village. It's about when tourists come, what do they do to this village. So yeah, it's incredibly interesting. I gave it 3 stars because I do feel like I'm getting used to training my ear to Latin American literature and the style of it, and the over stylized, I guess. Again, that's the way that I'm interpreting it, but I'm still learning about it. Still like level 1 Latin American literature, even though I took like a class in college because it was part of my major, but I never really got into it, and we never got like too deep into it, or the style of it, or why is it like it is. And now I'm rediscovering it. So yeah, I really like it. I would really recommend it. You know what, I'm gonna do it right now. I'll probably bump it up to 4 because the more I think about it, the more I like it. It's definitely not a 3 stars like the other books that I thought maybe. No, I really did like this one. So yeah, that was El Viejo que leía historias de amor, or El Viejo que leía novelas de amor. That's in Spanish. And yeah, those are all the books that I read in February. As you can see, it was a big mix. So I think I have a pretty diverse reading month. So I really like, those are my favorite month. I love reading diverse stories. I love reading different points of view, different cultures, how they view different things, and also in different genres, because the lived experience is very different, also depending on the age, depending on the genre, depending on the culture. So I would invite you to diversify your bookshelves as much as you can. There were a couple of books that I really wanted to read that I didn't get to read. The Vanishing Half, I didn't get to read. I put it also on my March TBR, so hopefully this month I can read it. And I had a couple of others that I wasn't able to read, but I added a few more, and I was able to read my 10 books in the month that I really wanted to read. So anyways, that's it. Let me know if you have read any of these books. Let me know if you like them, if you didn't like them, if you want to give them a try. Let me know what you read this month. Maybe I'll add them to my mood TBR. And if you don't follow me on Instagram, go ahead, because I already posted what I'm planning on reading on March. Maybe you can get some ideas. On the description, you have all the ways you can follow me on my social media, the book clubs, everything that we can do and hang out together online is right there. Also, if you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and also subscribe and ring on the bell so you can get notified every time I upload a video. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to keep reading and keep blooming, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.